Hearing me okay? Oh, sorry.
Our next presenter is Dr. Ruth Bergman. Dr. Bergman is director of Hewlett-Packard Labs in Israel. She joined HP in October of 2001 with lab research and information analytics, knowledge management, image analysis with numerous projects transferring the products, creating new business opportunities. Her research interests include machine learning, data mining, and image analysis. Dr. Bergman holds a PhD in electrical engineering and computer sciences from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the master's and bachelor's degrees in computer science from the University of California in San Diego. And her keynote address is Enterprise IT and Knowledge Keeping.
Thank you for the introduction. So again, can you hear me okay? Great. Okay, so before I jump into my main topic, I just want to quickly say a little bit about where I'm coming from. I am the director of HP Labs in Israel. We are, of course, part of the global research organization at HP. There aren't too many of those left, so it's a real privilege. Our particular lab was established in 1994 by Professor Abraham Lempel. You should probably recognize that name from Lempel Ziv, which is probably the most ubiquitous technology out there. And if you think that you don't recognize it, you're probably wrong because you've used zip, and that's the algorithm that's in there. So those are some big shoes that I have to fill. We are located on the campus of the Technion, the Israeli Institute of Technology. This is a great place to be because it's a really world-class research institution, and we get all the benefit of that academic environment, so it's great. What we do at the lab, so our core competencies, we started out with doing a lot of image processing, and you can imagine how that worked with HP has a big business in imaging and printing. HP is now shifting over more to information optimization, and we've kind of shifted up that way too. So going from image processing to computer vision to machine learning, it's a pretty natural set of transitions. And you'll see, relative to the previous talk, which was very dominated by organization behavior, that I'm coming at this knowledge thing from a very technical perspective. So it'll be quite different. Okay, so now let me get into the actual talk. So the information technology world is going through some huge tectonic shifts, I would say. We're looking at cloud and IT automation and various new technologies that are out there. And so if you open up any technology literature, you're going to see people's opinions about where this thing is going to go. And lots of these reviews actually look like a lot like this one. The oversized centralized IT department of 2001 is a relic that's never coming back. So pretty dismal. Furthermore, if you think of the CIO, this is what he's hearing. Companies are going to keep fewer ITs, pros on staff. So the IT department is going to shrink in size, and we're going to focus resources on cloud, mobile devices, and software. So if I was a CIO, I would. Okay, this is. Stopped working. Did I turn it off? No? Stopped working. Okay. No big deal. Wrong. Oh. This might start working again, too. This is not, no. Okay. I'm going to have to move back and forth, but that's okay. So if I was a CIO, I wouldn't be too excited about this kind of grim picture of, my power in the company, right? I hold a really great, powerful position in the company, and it's going to go away. So there are other predictions, and in fact, I'll make today a different kind of prediction. So other predictions are actually that there's a natural match between information technology and the way marketing organizations are going now, where they're looking at social media and they're analyzing things that their users say about them, like tweets and things like that, and really bringing that into their marketing strategy and into how they select products and so forth. So potentially, the role of the IT department will be to know all about the customers. So that's a little bit better, and it's an interesting one. If you've not had the chance to see this particular talk by Jeffrey Moore on the future of enterprise IT, I highly recommend it. It's available online, really, really good talk. And he talks about systems of records versus systems of engagement, where, what he's saying is that whereas in the past, it's really been those big technology companies like HP that have led new technology. Today, it's really the consumer world out there on the internet that's leading the world of technology with social media, Twitter, YouTube, all these things. And what's really happening is that people, during the weekend, they're on their computers, they're doing their personal stuff, and they're using all these systems that are very empowering and engaging. And then they come into the office, and they feel lame, right? They have these old systems. They have no access to organization information. So they're pretty unhappy. And so what he's saying is that really people are expecting more from IT. And he goes on to say, to discuss whether this change is going to come about as an evolution or as a revolution. And the argument is that, the evolution would be by putting out these various tools, but a revolution would be something else that we can't predict. And I kind of think it's more of a revolution, and I furthermore think that the revolution is around knowledge, and really around the idea that enterprise IT could keep the organizational knowledge. So it's the topic of my talk today, the role of the IT department as knowledge keeper. And when I say knowledge keeper here, I don't know if this is a great analogy, but I want to step away from the idea of keeping as storing. Okay, so maybe think of this as zookeeper, right? So the zookeeper does not only have to keep the animals alive, but he really has to show them off for the visitors of the zoo and to deliver that good visit experience. And furthermore, to really engage the visitors over the animals, right? So you do that in the petting zoo, and you do that in the shows. And if you heard your kid feed Shamu, which I don't know if I would do, but it's a good example here. So that's what I'm thinking of, really, not just storing, but really engaging the users over the enterprise knowledge. So on the rightmost side here, left, we have sort of what we kind of do now already, right? We record knowledge, and this will probably really doesn't fit in with your idea of knowledge. And you're right. This is really all the stuff I have written down there on the left-hand side. It's not really knowledge. It's data, even. I mean, maybe it's information, but the way we look at it now is as data, and we keep it. And so these documents, patents, emails, it's all generated by the organization, and it's all recorded. And newer things are recorded, like, we have social media tools now, so we have conversations, blogs, wikis, tweets, all these are recorded. Source code is another one, and HR data. So my argument is that yes, this is just data, but in that data, if you could uncover it, is quite a bit of that tacit knowledge that you have in your organization. So if we could tap it, if we could then let people in the organization discover things, discover those seminal documents, discover who knows what in the organization, discover the right person to help them to solve a problem, discover who's working on that right now or worked on that 2 years ago, discover how deep the knowledge is in one particular area, or where there's some knowledge missing, if you could actually look at the holistic information, the holistic set of knowledge in the organization. This becomes really important if you think about intellectual property, right? A big organization has a lot of intellectual property, and they want to know what areas are covered and what areas they might want to invest in some more. And another area, and this really ties in with the previous presentation very well, is those prior projects, the projects that we've done, and what their outcomes were. And that sort of information is, again, lost if people leave the company. So we want to enable people to discover it. Furthermore, we want to, once we can do that, we've already got a pretty good understanding of our organizational information or knowledge. And then we want to really engage people over it. So we don't want them to necessarily go out and look for that information. We want to just deliver it to them in the context that they're working in. And we want to enable them to curate and to write their own ideas about knowledge items. This document is really good. It really helped me do so-and-so. Or this document is not very helpful. These kinds of things. We want to help people to do these, join together in collaboration to create new knowledge through some technological tools. We can suggest people that they can work with. We can actually identify a right set of people to go after some problem or some sales pursuit. And in general, we can do a much better job managing our employees. So, a manager can do a great job managing 20 people because they know what every person's expertise is. They know what they know how they work, they know who they work well with in a group that's small, maybe in 50 people. But how can we do that when we have 100,000? Okay, so what I'm going to try to convince you of today is that, in fact, this is a worthy role for the IT department and a right role, so both worthy and right as knowledge keepers. So first thing I'm going to try to convince you is that the IT department is the right place in the organization to go after this, okay, and that it's to everybody's interest. And then, once I've convinced you of that, then we have to think about how to actually do it, and it's really not that easy. A lot easier said than done. And the issues are both organizational and technological, so I'll talk about both of those. So starting here, I'm going to start with it should be the role of the IT department, and it's to everyone's advantage. And I'm really not going to cover every point of view. I'm kind of going under the assumption that you already believe that knowledge is important. I think Susu hopefully convinced you of that. So this thing is really important, and we as employees in the company need more of that overall knowledge that the company has, and for management, it's also good. It helps the company run better. So the question really is, why the IT department? So let's look at what an IT department is supposed to do. So this is a kind of typical, I think, mission statement for an IT department. It says the mission of information technology is to provide strategic IT vision, meaning, what should we be doing in the future to help run the company better? Leadership, again, and enterprise solutions to the staff so that they can meet their goals. So basically, we want to make sure that our staff can do what they need to do so the company makes money. That's basically what that's saying there. And so what kind of services does the IT department typically provide? Bottom line, so it provides these things, right? And we all have these. And it also provides the network. So on that thing, we also have internet, and it provides telecommunications. So it also typically runs the phone. Now, all these things are kind of boring, I think. And in fact, I'm not the only one who thinks that. So running all these basic services are actually moving towards IT automation. So on my laptop, which is not this one has a wrong company on it. Completely objective. So on my laptop, though, I have an agent, and I cannot connect my computer to HP network without having this agent on my computer. And that agent puts everything I need, whether I want it or don't want it, onto my computer. So it's got the security programs that are critical for IT, and it's my point of access to all the applications that HP provides me. And this is completely automatic, and I never have to talk to anybody about making my computer run. And furthermore, they've figured out that it's actually cheaper for them to just replace my computer after 3 years rather than letting it break down and having to keep people to fix it, right? So they've really figured all these things out. It's very automated. But of course, you'll say, and you'd be right, that there are a lot of changes in this space. So computing devices are moving to this mobile. And so the IT department is kind of busy trying to figure out how to give you everything that you need on mobile, but they'll figure it out. I'm optimistic. And same for telecommunications. So we're getting more audio and video telecommunications, and so they have to figure that out. And so I'm sure they will. So that's those first two services. Then the other big thing that the IT department does is it runs your line of business applications, right? It makes sure that your customers have access to your applications 24/7 and whatever amount of computer power you need. And this is a big responsibility, but it's kind of shifting to the cloud probably. So this is all going to get a lot easier. When things are running on the cloud, you have your customer base is doubled. You just get twice as much space on the cloud, or as much as you need. So that part of it is reducing too. And then the fourth big area that the IT department works on is those enterprise information services. So that's your enterprise directory, right? Who's in the company and where, phone numbers. It's your email server. It's your customer resource management database, stuff like that. So that part is not going away. And furthermore, really what I'm saying is, you think in those top services, you're going to actually have a reduced number of people. Well, take them and reinvest them in something that's much bigger than the current set of information systems you're providing. Invest them in providing knowledge services. It's kind of a natural transition. Why is it a natural transition? Because really, the IT department has already got the left side of this. They're the ones doing it, right? So they're actually running all these applications that, the SharePoint to store your documents or something like it, right, in your organization, the Microsoft Exchange or something like it to keep all your emails, the version control for your source code, the various social media type applications that are popping up everywhere, wikis, Yammer, which is like chatter for organizations, and all that. So they're in the right place to do it. So it should be them. Okay, so that's the first part. Hopefully, I've convinced you it should be the IT department, rather than making some new organization. So now I want to talk about some organizational challenges, and they're really big. So the thing is that, everybody's talking about IT automation, and everybody's talking about the cloud, and clearly these things are, it's well understood that these things are coming, but in fact, they're not really quite, despite all the hype, if you look at the data, they're not quite here yet. So if you look at the data, and I don't have data for IT automation, but I found this good data about cloud applications. So you'll see, in the US, for example, only about 19% of enterprise applications are currently running on the cloud. And they only project 34% for 2014. So this is going to be a long time before the IT department is actually free and available to do this. It's just a point I found interesting on this slide is that actually the emerging countries or emerging economies are actually picking up on this trend faster. And you could imagine some economic reasons for that. So the point here is that these things are imminent, and the IT department will have more free time in the future, but right now it's still really, really busy. So it's not actually free to take advantage of the possibilities here. The other reason is really that thinking about knowledge is a conceptual shift for the IT department, because the IT department, deploys devices and applications. And from the IT department point of view, I imagine that they think that they're doing it. Because, we're putting out these tools. And indeed they are. They're putting out social media tools. In HP, they've put out several. Here's a couple of examples. Yammer, which is like chatter, and Connections, which is kind of like Facebook. And so they are putting it out there. But these things really aren't getting adopted. And again, I'm really glad that I followed the previous talk, because I think this really, the way I see it, it's really that these are the tip of the iceberg. So, maybe you can capture some tiny amount of the organizational knowledge in a tool like this, but it's just not capturing enough to be interesting. So you don't get the adoption, and you don't get the benefit in the end. So being a very technological person, I think you can get the benefit, but you have to, tie it down. You have to look deeper into that iceberg. You have to look at that organizational knowledge, and you put this tool on top of all that organizational knowledge, so that this tool can connect to all the documents and all the emails and all the videos and all the source codes and everything, and really give you some value. But this is a really big, I think, conceptual change from deploying applications to owning that knowledge and delivering it and engaging over it. So that's hard to do because, people don't like change. Okay, so that's the second half, and now I'll get to what I think is the most interesting part, which is really talking a little bit about the technology part of it. Okay, so when we think about knowledge to a great extent these days, well, we think about search, right? Because that's our way to access knowledge. We go on Google, we search. So I want to talk a little bit about how that constrains us. So if you think about, what you do when you want to learn about a new field. So I went through this exercise, and the most obvious time where I went through this exercise was when I was doing my PhD work, right? Starting to work on my thesis. What I really did is, called on my advisor or some colleagues, asked them for some papers, and started creating these islands of connections, right? And followed from this paper to some of the papers that it references, and building up these islands. And the thing is that there's so much more that you don't see. You build those islands, but there's a lot more behind it, which is what we want to get access to in a much stronger way. So search is another way to get started on building up these islands. And definitely, don't get me wrong. Life is better. When I did this, Google wasn't around yet. So I'm dating myself a little bit. And so, yes, life is much better with search than it was without search. You can do more. It is easier to get started. But we believe that there's a better way. Interestingly enough, Google also can think beyond search, beyond keyword search. So they recently pulled out this announcement about their knowledge graph, which looks at things rather than just search strings, right? And what they do with these things is, for example, if I search on Jerusalem, just a random example, then it gives me the site information, and it recognizes that Jerusalem is a place, so that it can put it on a map, and it shows me a map of where it is. And then it can give me some information about it, which it extracts from Wikipedia. So it's really, you can see it's doing a lot of analytics, connecting things to build this knowledge graph. And other information that may be interesting for a place like weather and local time and some points of interest. In fact, it did quite a nice job of doing a summary for Jerusalem. So we're really thinking in my lab about kind of a very similar direction for enterprises. We've been thinking about it longer. It's just fortuitous that they recently came out with this announcement. So a representation of the knowledge in the organization, which is the people and the knowledge items, knowledge resources, which can be documents and other things, topics that the organization is working in, which in the past had been called taxonomy. You can use a taxonomy. You can use a more loose set of semantic tags is also okay. And you use whatever information you can and a lot of analytics to connect these things up and build relations between these things in the graph. So some relations are pretty obvious, right? Like manages, manager-employee relation, which you can find in Enterprise Directory, no analytics required. But you want to know things like documents that are similar to each other. That requires some text analysis. And of course, beyond the particular items that I listed here, you can think of a lot more things that you could add to this graph. Projects, products, customers, and so on. So suppose we've built this graph, we want to take advantage of it with, again, these experiences, right? This delivery, discovery experiences and these engaging experiences. And so, and really there's not one experience. We see this as many, many, many knowledge use cases, many knowledge experiences. And different ones for different personas in the organization. And even different ones for one person who is sometimes acting as a different persona, right? So, and of course I don't have the picture of what all of these would be. I would say probably I don't have a picture of what even one of them will really or should really be like, but I'll show you the ones that we're working on. This is a shameless plug for the presentation that I'm going to be giving together with my colleague in the following session. So if you're interested in kind of the nuts and bolts behind it, you should come to that. But the basic experience here is looking at what in the enterprise is relevant to me. Who is relevant to me, meaning that they work on similar things that I work on. They've written similar documents, the documents that I've worked on is really where we are. And so we can see them and their documents. We can find experts at a topic and find what the expertise of any person is. And I think the important experience here that's beyond search, right? Why is it shown graphically and not just as a linked list of who's relevant to me, is that this interface enables me to look at a person, sort of click on them and see what documents they've written. So when I see who it is, I also see why. Because when I look at the document, I should be able to say, okay, yeah, I get this. This is relevant. This is a very early interface, so it doesn't really look that compelling yet. But the idea here is we're actually doing this not for the organization, but to mimic the process of doing academic research. And we are actually working towards deploying this on the archive. If you're familiar with that, it's a digital publishing website which is used heavily by physicists, mathematicians, and computer scientists. And the idea there will be that you can kind of start from who, like the previous one, who I am and what's relevant to me. But you can also pick a new topic and see what's relevant to that topic and have the thing go exploring deeper and deeper into the topic. And you can guide that exploration. You can say, okay, don't show me more of this stuff. Show me more here, and sort of guide that search experience. And then we have this experience, which looks a little bit more social networky tool type, right? Which we call it Compass. And in particular, the focus here is around making collections, or curating the knowledge that interests you individually. So making collections, finding things that are relevant to those collections, curating in the sense of saying this is a good piece of information, less good piece of information, stuff like that. So those are just some user experiences, and I think the sky's the limit here. There's a ton more to do. And the problems are only going to get harder, right? So when we think about getting relevant information, so what's relevant? What's relevant to me when I start writing an email about knowledge is, maybe documents around knowledge. But when I'm in my more administrative role, then completely different things are relevant to me, right? So the whole concept of relevant is very, very subtle. And it needs a very thorough understanding of personal context, which is, what I'm working on now and who I know and who I trust and what things I've already read and what things I haven't read, what I know versus what I'm interested in. There's a lot of subtlety there. And it's also subtle in the sense of the organization, right? Because the organization also kind of directs where your knowledge should be focusing and what's relevant to you, right? Because they have a strategy, and they have sort of people who are established as experts versus not, and so forth. So all these things need to be really taken into account as we want to deliver these knowledge experiences in the right way for the right person at the right time, and so on. Very subtle, very hard technically. Another very important area is the quality of information. So very clearly, when I write a paper, versus when that paper is refereed for a conference, there's a different level of quality. This is something that we're all familiar with, right? There's also a sense of a different level of quality in a patent, which my company invests thousands of dollars to put out, and the patent office spends a lot of resources to research and grant. So there's different levels of these things. We can talk about presentations and videos and all these things. Emails, actually a very interesting source of information about knowledge, right? On the one hand, for a lot of people, they use email more than anything else. So it is the best place actually to find out about what they do and what they know about. But in general, if you take a random email message, it's pretty weak in information, right? There's not much there. So it's an interesting one. I mentioned the difference between what I know about versus what I'm interested in. So if you think about the documents I write, patents and really authored white papers, those are things I know about typically. And then there's things that I might access in a search. And those are more things that I'm interested in or things that I'm currently working on. So you have to think about all these different quality and how to fold them into a measure of authority of my expertise. Okay, another, I think, very important area. So how am I doing on time? Okay, I'm good. I think that you've probably all been thinking about documents. I've probably said documents many times. I didn't count in this presentation. But really, when we talk about knowledge, it's not just documents, right? So I already said some people author documents. Some people don't. They author emails. There's a lot of video hanging around in the enterprise these days. In fact, it's the biggest growing media out there on the internet. And likewise in organizations. Every presentation is taped, being taped right now. So we need to think about about technology to fold all these things. It's not just text mining anymore. There's all these other things that we need to do. Now, I mentioned video. So video is, you'd think, quite different than text. In fact, it turns out that the best way to handle video is just to convert it to text to speech to text, and then treat it like a document. Although you could do a few other things. You could break up scenes, and you could actually identify people using face recognition or voice recognition. So there are a few more things you can do with the video, but it's not a whole heck of a lot different than documents. But some things are really very different than documents. For example, there are a lot of people in a large organization who never write a document, don't even write much email. They write code. Okay, and this is a huge and very, very important area of knowledge that the company has and that they lose, right? I mean, everybody knows that if you haven't used some piece of code for 6 months, it's rotted. You can't go back to that anymore, right? So I think that this is a really, really rich area for future work, analyzing code. It can start from something relatively simple, like understanding what your expertise as a programmer is or as a developer is when you develop code, and this is important in itself, but then harder questions come up if you want to start thinking about reusing code. And and if we're going to code, then why stop there? What about an engineering firm that does CAD designs? Maybe we can do some analysis in that space. Okay, it's getting harder, and then the zebra is really the X. It could be anything. I'm not necessarily saying we should analyze artwork. But there's really a really rich future, I think, for this whole general area. So just to summarize my point, I've tried to convince you that there is a big benefit into making the enterprise IT department responsible for knowledge keeping. Again, keeping in the sense of delivering all those user experiences that we want to have around our knowledge. So I talked about why it should be the IT department, and that it really will be to everyone's advantage if that particular department picks it up. And I said that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because there are organizational challenges. The IT department is not a fast-moving, easy adoption, and it could take quite a long time to get there unless there's some dramatic shift in the way sort of upper management perceives this particular issue. And there are lots of interesting research in technology to do more and more. I mean, there's a fair amount we can do right now. And again, talk about that a little bit more in the next session. But there is also a very rich area of research. So with that, thank you for your attention.